What if, without warning, the world you knew slipped away? What if you found yourself standing at the edge of time itself, watching what was yet to come, and it wasn't what anyone expected? Today, you will hear the story of a man named Mustafa, whose life took a turn so extraordinary, so deeply unsettling, that it will challenge everything you think you know about the future. Mustafa was not a man who sought out visions. He lived a simple life, one built on quiet devotion, family, and routine. There were no warning signs, no strange dreams, no messages hidden in the everyday noise. But one ordinary afternoon, with no storm on the horizon, Mustafa's world collapsed into silence. And as his body lay unresponsive, his mind and soul were carried to a place beyond imagination, a place where time was not a straight line and the events of 2026 were already set in motion. The images he witnessed were not colorful fantasies. They were not grand displays designed for awe. They were clear, sharp, unavoidable. He saw cities that once bustled with life now standing quiet and broken. He heard the cries of people who realized too late that they had built their lives on foundations that could not hold. He felt the weight of decisions made in pride, fear, and forgetfulness. What Mustafa experienced in those last hours changed him forever. It left him carrying a burden not of fear, but of urgency. A call not just to remember God, but to prepare for what is coming. Before we begin this remarkable journey, I want to invite you to be part of it fully. If you have not yet subscribed, take a moment now. Click that button, turn on notifications, and prepare yourself to walk through a story unlike any other. If, at any point, you feel the stirring of your own heart, do not keep it to yourself. Share this story with someone you care about. It may be the message they need to hear. Stay with us until the very end. The final vision that Mustafa was shown about the year 2026 is not only startling, it holds a warning that every person should hear. It may change the way you live. It may change the way you see the days ahead. And now, let us begin.
My name is Mustafa. I am 51 years old, and until recently, my life was simple, quiet, and full of the things that mattered most to me: faith, family, and honest work. I live in a modest neighborhood just outside Amman, Jordan. To most people, my life would have seemed ordinary, almost forgettable. I ran a small grocery shop, nothing fancy, just enough to provide for my wife and our 3 grown children. Every morning, before the sun touched the rooftops, I would wake for prayer, thanking God for another day. Every evening, I would sit with my family, sharing tea, laughter, and the small stories that made up our lives. Faith was never something distant to me. It was part of every breath, every step. I wasn't a scholar. I wasn't a saint. I was a man who tried, every day, to remember God in my actions, in my words, in my heart. I didn't chase after the world or worry much about the things that slip through your fingers when you die. I believed that if I prayed sincerely, treated people kindly, and kept my promises, that would be enough. I had no reason to expect anything unusual to happen in my life. I had no special dreams or visions. I lived close to the earth, with my head bowed and my heart open. I remember the days before it happened as clear and unremarkable as any other. I woke early. I opened the shop. I spoke with familiar faces, stocked the shelves, counted the change. There was no warning. No strange feeling in my bones. No restless nights. Life was steady, like a calm river moving slowly through the seasons. If you had asked me then, I would have said I was healthy, blessed, and content. I had plans, small ones, like fixing the squeaky door at the shop, visiting my eldest son in his new apartment, helping my wife plant more roses in the yard. It was a Thursday when my world shifted. I was standing behind the counter, sorting through a box of dates, when a tightness gripped my chest. At first, I thought maybe it was nothing, just fatigue from the long morning. I sat down, telling myself it would pass. But the dizziness grew stronger, and the colors around me began to fade into a gray mist. I remember trying to reach for my phone, trying to call for help, but my arms would not move the way I told them to. Then everything slipped away. They told me later that customers found me slumped over, my breathing shallow, my skin cold. The ambulance raced through the crowded streets, sirens screaming, as my family rushed after it, not knowing if they would ever hear my voice again. In the hospital, machines were hooked to my body, doctors spoke in hushed tones, and prayers poured from the lips of my loved ones. But I was gone from them, far beyond their reach. I had fallen into a coma, without explanation, and without warning. No one knew why. My heart was still beating. My lungs still drew breath. But my mind had crossed a threshold no machine could measure. I was not asleep. I was not dreaming. I was awake, somewhere else. At first, there was nothing but silence. Not the heavy silence of fear, but a deep and endless stillness that wrapped around me like a blanket. It was in that silence that I realized I was being prepared to see something. Not from the past. Not from my memories. From the future. From a time that had not yet touched the earth. And the year I was about to witness, the year 2026, would be nothing like the life I had left behind. I wish I could tell you exactly how long I floated in that stillness, but time had no meaning where I was. Later, they told me it had been only hours after I collapsed that the doctors realized something was deeply wrong. My wife, Yasmin, arrived at the hospital with tears already staining her scarf. She clutched my hand, whispering prayers, as machines beeped and breathed for me. My children stood nearby, silent, holding each other like driftwood in a raging sea. The doctors were kind but guarded. They said my condition was serious. They explained how the lack of oxygen had caused my brain activity to slow, then almost flatline. In simple words, they told my family what none of them wanted to hear, that they should prepare themselves for the worst. If I woke at all, they said, I might not be the same. And each hour that passed without change made it less likely that I would return to them at all. Yasmin refused to leave my side. She sat by my bed, hour after hour, whispering verses from the Quran into my ear. She played recordings of the adhan, the call to prayer, hoping the familiar sounds would pull me back from wherever I had gone. My sons argued quietly in the hallway, one insisting I would wake, the other asking what would happen if I didn't. Nurses moved around me like shadows, checking tubes, adjusting machines, but nothing seemed to stir me. Inside my body, my heart kept beating. My lungs kept rising and falling. But inside my soul, I was no longer there. I was somewhere else, suspended between two worlds. While my body lay lifeless on that narrow hospital bed, something extraordinary was beginning. I could not see my family crying. I could not hear the soft prayers falling from my wife's lips. But I could feel something pulling at me, something calling me to open my eyes, not my physical eyes, but the eyes of my spirit. It began slowly. First, a sense of being lifted, as if invisible hands were raising me from everything I had known. I was not in a hospital room anymore. I was standing in a place I did not recognize. The air was heavy, thick with meaning, though there was no wind, no sound. I looked around, but there were no walls, no sky, no ground that I could name. It was as if I was standing inside a thought, a place woven from the fabric of something greater than the world I knew. And then, without warning, a presence stood before me. I cannot describe it as a man or a creature. It was something else, something pure and full of purpose. There were no words exchanged, no language as we know it. But in an instant, I understood, I was about to be shown something important. Something not for me alone, but for all of us. The presence moved aside, and before me unfolded a vision so vast and so real that it stole the breath from my spirit. I was no longer standing still. I was moving forward. Pulled, guided, drawn by something unseen. I was about to see what few have seen and return to tell. I was about to witness what the world would become. And the year marked at the gates of the vision was 2026. I felt a trembling inside me, not of fear, but of knowing. I understood that once I saw these things, I could not pretend they did not exist. I would not be allowed to forget. I was being given a responsibility, not just a glimpse. The earth I knew was about to reveal a face I had never imagined. The days ahead, your days, my days, all of our days, were already written in a story unfolding beyond our sight. And soon, I would walk through that story, step by step. I was no longer Mustafa the shopkeeper, lying helpless in a hospital bed. I was something more, a witness, a messenger, standing at the edge of a future that was rushing toward us like a tide. At first, there was only brightness, not like the sun we know, but a kind of light that carried weight and warmth together. It wasn't blinding, but it filled everything. I had no shadow. There was no up, no down, no direction as we understand it. I simply was. For a moment, I felt a peace so deep, so complete, that every burden I had ever carried slipped from me like dust in the wind. I was free from fear, free from pain, free from doubt. Then, slowly, the light around me began to shift. Shapes emerged, but they were not like anything I had ever seen. They were beings, radiant, towering, clothed not in fabric but in light itself. They had no faces that I could name, but their presence spoke louder than any voice. I knew without being told that these were messengers, servants of God, sent to guide me through what I was about to see. I wanted to speak, to ask where I was, but no words came from my mouth. And yet, somehow, everything I needed to understand was given to me instantly. These beings were not here to comfort me. They were here to show me something that was coming, something that would touch every living soul. I turned, and the space around me changed again. It was as if an unseen hand had torn a curtain aside, and beyond it, I could see the earth, but not the earth as it is now. This was the earth in a time yet to come. And hovering over it all was a feeling I can only describe as urgent, like a heart beating faster and faster before a great moment. Then came a voice. It was not like any voice I have ever heard. It did not enter through my ears but through my very being, filling every part of me at once. It was neither loud nor soft, it simply was, unshakable and final. And it said, "You must see what is coming, and warn others." The words were not a request. They were a command, spoken with the authority of the one who created all things. I knew instantly it was God speaking to me. I cannot explain how I knew. It was beyond knowing. It was simply truth. A part of me wanted to fall to my knees, but I had no knees to fall upon. I was spirit, standing naked before the will of God. I felt exposed, not ashamed, but completely known. Every choice I had ever made, every thought, every fear, every hope, it was all laid bare before him. And yet, there was no hatred in his presence. Only a vast, overwhelming love, and a deep sorrow. The messengers moved around me, though they did not touch me. Their movements seemed to shape the visions that now began to unfold in front of my eyes. I braced myself, though I had no body to brace. I understood that what I was about to see would not be easy. It would challenge everything I thought I knew about the world, about life, about the future. I wanted to cry out, to say I was not worthy to see these things. But the voice came again, more gently this time. "You have been chosen not for your strength, but for your willingness. Watch, and remember." And so I watched. The earth before me shifted once more, and the scenes of 2026 began to unravel, not as a single event, but as a tapestry woven with threads of hope, fear, and change. I felt the gravity of what I was about to witness settle upon me like a mantle. This was no dream. This was no fantasy. This was a glimpse into tomorrow, given to me not for my sake alone, but for everyone who would hear this story. The journey had begun. There was no turning back. The first vision opened before me like a window tearing through the fabric of the light. I saw the earth trembling, great cities falling like towers of sand. The ground cracked open in places where there had never been earthquakes before. I recognized some of the places, bustling cities that had once stood proud and unshakable. Now, they crumbled, swallowed by the earth itself. People screamed and ran, but there was nowhere to hide. Buildings that had taken years to build collapsed in seconds, and the dust that rose from their ruins darkened the sky. Then came the waters. I saw waves, taller than any building, racing across the oceans and swallowing the coasts. Whole towns disappeared beneath the waves without warning. In some parts of the world, rain fell so fiercely that the rivers overflowed and swallowed the land. In other places, the land burned. Wildfires erupted, not just in forests but in cities, fire jumping from building to building, devouring everything in its path. People fled, but the flames were faster. I felt the agony of the earth itself, as if the ground were crying out from deep within, a groaning that echoed across oceans and continents. Nature was not turning against men, it was reacting to something deeper, something broken. Then the vision shifted again. I saw leaders, men and women in suits, their faces hard and desperate, shouting at each other across great tables. Treaties once trusted were torn apart. Wars broke out not between distant lands but between neighbors, between countries that had once stood side by side. I saw missiles rising into the sky, the dark trails they left behind staining the heavens. Cities lit up not with celebration, but with fire and destruction. The flags of nations fell, and in their place rose a chaos no one could control. I wanted to look away, but I could not. The vision pulled me forward. I saw money, paper money, coins, the symbols of wealth, blowing through empty streets like leaves in the wind. Markets that had once been filled with voices shouting in hope and ambition now sat silent and abandoned. Currencies once mighty were now worthless. I saw long lines of people, their faces hollow with hunger, waiting for food that might never come. Banks locked their doors. Businesses shuttered their windows. Those who had once been rich were now no different from those who had been poor. No one was spared. As the economy crumbled, so did society. I saw neighbors turning against each other. Streets that had once echoed with laughter and community now echoed with suspicion and fear. I saw people carrying weapons openly, not for defense against invaders, but against each other. Distrust ran deeper than blood. Families broke apart. Communities that had once cared for each other became battlegrounds for survival. There were few places left untouched. Even the places that seemed peaceful were only holding their breath, waiting for the storm to reach them too. Yet even amid the darkness, I could feel something else, a tension, like the first stirring of a distant wind. It was not all hopeless. But at that moment, in those visions, the world I saw was one overwhelmed by fear, loss, and chaos. The voice returned, steady and commanding. Remember what you see. Speak of it when the time comes. They must be warned. I felt those words sink deep into me, carving themselves onto my soul. I knew I would never forget what I was seeing. It was not just for me. It was a burden meant to be shared, a warning meant to be spoken before it was too late. The light around me shifted once again, signaling that more was yet to come. What I had seen was only the beginning. As the visions of disaster faded into the background, a new scene unfolded before me, one that stirred a different kind of emotion deep within my chest. In the midst of the chaos and fear that had spread across the earth, I began to see small pockets of light. They were faint at first, like distant stars struggling to shine through thick clouds. But as I watched, they grew stronger. I saw people gathering in fields, in ruined buildings, in hidden rooms. They knelt together, their heads bowed, their hands raised toward the heavens. They were praying, not with fancy words or practiced speeches, but with cries from the depths of their souls. Some prayed through tears, others through whispers of hope. Their voices rose together, weaving into a sound more powerful than any storm I had seen. It was a revival unlike anything I had ever imagined. Not organized, not led by great names or famous leaders, but rising from the simple hearts of ordinary people. Men, women, and even children who had lost everything, homes, wealth, safety, found something greater, an unshakable faith. They clung to it like a lifeline in the raging sea. Yet even as true faith was rising, I saw another reality taking shape. There were others, cloaked in charisma and false light, standing before crowds with promises that glittered but were hollow inside. I watched these false prophets lead thousands astray, offering easy answers, false security, and twisted truths. They spoke of hope, but their words were laced with lies. And many, desperate and frightened, followed them willingly into deeper darkness. I felt a deep sorrow watching this unfold. Not everyone who sought light found it. Some ran after the shadows, mistaking them for salvation. Then the voice came again, filling the very air around me. The hearts of men will be tested. Their choices will determine their destiny. Judgment or redemption, the path is before them. I understood then that what was coming was not simply a time of suffering. It was a time of decision. A moment when every soul would have to choose who they would trust, where they would anchor their hope. I saw images flash quickly, people standing at crossroads, their faces filled with uncertainty. One path led through a narrow gate, rough and steep, but shining with an unearthly light. The other path was wide and easy, filled with many voices calling and laughter that sounded sweet but grew hollow as the road stretched on. The role of faith was not just to survive the storm, but to find true peace amid it. I could see it so clearly. Only those who clung to God with all their heart, refusing to let go even when everything else was stripped away, would find the peace their souls desperately needed. The others, those who chased after the promises of men or leaned only on their own strength, would find themselves lost in the growing darkness. I felt a weight in my chest, a desperate urgency. This was not just a vision for some faraway people. It was a message for everyone, everywhere, including those who, even now, might still believe they are safe because they live far from war, or because they have wealth, or because they trust in governments and systems. No one would be untouched. Every heart would be tested. The final words the voice spoke in this part of the vision still echo inside me. Faith will be the only anchor. Trust in me, and you will find life. The light began to fade once more, and I felt myself being drawn deeper still, toward one final revelation, a glimpse of what could come if hearts turned back, if hope was not abandoned. And I knew I was not yet done. Slowly, the visions began to fade, like mist being pulled away by an unseen wind. I felt myself being drawn backward, out of the brilliant realms I had wandered through, back toward a weight I had almost forgotten, the weight of my body. There was a sudden jolt, a sensation like being thrown from a great height, and then everything was dark. I don't know how much time passed before I heard it, faint at first, then growing clearer. Voices. Familiar voices. I strained to understand, and through the fog, I recognized my mother's tearful prayers, my father's trembling whispers, my brother's calling my name. I tried to move, but my body felt heavy, like it was made of stone. Yet deep inside, something told me I was returning. With great effort, I forced my eyes to open. Blinding white light filled them, and for a moment, I thought I was still in that other realm. But as my vision cleared, I saw the outline of a hospital room. Machines beeped steadily beside me. Tubes and wires covered my arms and chest. And there, clinging to my hand, was my mother, her eyes wide with shock and overflowing with tears. The room erupted in emotion. My family gathered around me, crying, praising God, calling for the doctors. I could barely speak, but a single tear rolled down my cheek, and a weak smile crossed my lips. I was alive. I had returned. The doctors rushed in, stunned by what they called a miraculous recovery. They spoke in hushed tones, bewildered at how someone whose brain had shown nearly no activity for days could suddenly wake up. They ran tests, asked endless questions. But even as they probed my body, my mind was burning with something far greater, the weight of the visions I had seen. In the weeks that followed, my recovery was slow. I had to learn to move again, to eat, to stand. Every step was painful, every day a battle. Yet through it all, there was a fire inside me that no weakness could put out. I knew I had been allowed to return for a reason. I could not keep silent. As soon as I had strength to speak more clearly, I began to share what I had seen, first with my family, then with others. Some listened with wide eyes and trembling hearts. Others were skeptical, dismissing it as a dream or a trick of the mind. But I knew the truth of what I had experienced. It was more real than anything in this world. My life changed completely after that day. The faith I had always carried grew deeper, rooted now in something unshakable. I prayed with new urgency, not out of habit, but out of desperate love. I no longer worried about things that once consumed my thoughts: money, status, opinions of others. What mattered now was simple: to stay close to God and to warn as many as I could. I traveled to mosques, to community centers, to small gatherings wherever people would listen. I shared the visions, the warnings, and the hope that still remained. I told them about the storms coming, but also about the light that could still be found for those who chose faith. Many wept. Some changed their lives. Others turned away. But I kept speaking, because the burden was too great to ignore. It was not about me. It was about what was coming, what I had seen with my own soul. And deep inside, I knew the visions of 2026 were not just possibilities. They were a call to prepare, to repent, to hold fast to faith before the winds began to blow harder than anyone could imagine. I had been given a second chance, not just to live, but to carry a message from beyond the veil of this world. And I would carry it until my final breath. As I look back on everything I experienced, the weight of it all becomes heavier each day. The visions I saw, they weren't just dreams or figments of an imagination that had slipped into a coma. They were real. I felt them, saw them, and knew with every ounce of my being that what I was shown would come. The disasters. The wars. The breakdown of societies. The fear and panic that would sweep across the world. It was all so vivid. So undeniable. But what struck me most was the unmistakable truth that there was still time to change. Time to prepare. Time to turn toward the light. I can't shake the image of people, broken and lost, chasing after false promises in the midst of chaos. It is a fate I pray none of us must endure. This world is fragile, and our choices today will determine how we weather the storms ahead. You must understand, my brothers and sisters, this is not a call to fear. It is a call to action. It is a call to prepare spiritually. The days ahead will not be easy, but God's promise remains: for those who trust in Him, there is hope, there is peace, and there is salvation. Repentance, true repentance, is not just saying words. It is a turning away from the things that distract us, that pull us from the truth. It is a return to God with all our hearts, acknowledging our dependence on His mercy. Only through faith in Him will we find the strength to stand firm when everything else is falling apart. So I urge you, I beg you, do not wait. Do not wait until the signs are undeniable. Turn to God now. Strengthen your faith, deepen your prayers, and find community with those who share this belief. The world will try to draw you in with false promises, but know that the true hope, the true light, can only be found in Him. Don't let the coming trials be a reason to fear. Let them be the reason you draw closer to God. He is the anchor in the storm. He is the one who will guide you through the darkest nights. And if we trust in Him, no matter what happens, we will emerge victorious. These aren't just the words of a man who's been through something incredible, these are the words of someone who has seen, with clarity, that we are living in a time of great importance. The choices you make today will echo through the days that follow. Be vigilant. Be ready. This is your time. This is our time to strengthen our faith, to prepare, and to face the future with confidence in God's plan, no matter what may come. As I share my story with you, I hope it has touched your heart in a way that moves you to reflect, to change, or to prepare. If this story has resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need hope today. You never know how much a single story can make a difference in someone's life. If you found strength or encouragement in this journey, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your experiences, we want to hear from you. Together, we can grow stronger in faith and support one another through the challenges ahead. And don't forget, in upcoming videos, we'll be stepping even deeper into end-time visions, exploring what they mean for us, and how we can prepare for what's to come. So stay tuned, because there's so much more to uncover. Thank you for watching, and may God bless you as you walk through this world with faith and strength.